So in this lecture we're going to look at 7 words connected to illness. Here are the 7 words: acute, chronic, addict, allergy, syndrome, epidemic, trauma. And the first word is acute. Acute. An acute illness is one that becomes severe, becomes very bad, very quickly, but it usually doesn't last a long time. So this man has an acute headache. She was admitted to hospital with acute arthritis. After drinking contaminated water, he developed an acute case of dysentery. She was rushed to hospital after feeling acute chest pains. So you can have acute pain, acute symptoms, acute illness, acute infection. And some synonyms for acute: severe, intense, sudden and sharp. And acute is often contrasted with chronic. Chronic. So a chronic illness or a disability lasts for a long time, often years. So, for example, he's suffering from chronic back pain. So it's been going on for years. He can't get rid of the back pain. She suffered for years with chronic depression. The condition is often chronic. So you can have chronic pain, chronic stress, a chronic disorder, and chronic illness. So chronic. You can have an adverb from chronic: chronically. So chronic is an adjective, chronically is the adverb. And some synonyms for chronic: constant and continual, incurable, it can't be cured, persistent, protracted, sustained. The next word is addict. Addict. So an addict is someone who does harmful things but can't stop doing them, such as a drug addict or a nicotine addict, a cigarette addict. They can't stop taking these things. And they're bad for them as well. So the research is designed to find out why drug addicts often relapse. He was both an alcoholic and a cocaine addict. They were both recovering addicts and supported each other. So you can have a drug addict, heroin addict. You become addicted. And you can be a former addict. So addicts is the plural. And addicted. So you are addicted to something. Addicted to. And you have an addiction. Addiction. So that's the noun. Your next word is allergy. Allergy. So if you have a particular allergy, you get ill when you eat or smell or touch something. And these are things that don't normally make people sick or ill. So, for example, this lady has an allergy. She's sneezing, maybe because of she touched some flowers or ate something, or maybe because of grass, the seeds in grass. For example, food allergies can result in a wide variety of symptoms. An allergy to cats is a common cause of asthma. It is important to protect infants against allergies. So you have an allergy to something. You can develop an allergy, a severe allergy, and an allergic reaction, such as sneezing or having a rash on your skin. So the plural of allergy is allergies, And the adjective is allergic. Allergic. So allergy, allergic. So allergy. Some synonyms: sensitivity, hypersensitivity, that's very high sensitivity, reaction, and aversion, aversion. Your next word is syndrome. Syndrome. A syndrome is a medical condition that is characterized by a particular group of signs and symptoms. So, for example, irritable bowel syndrome affects more women than men. The syndrome is more likely to affect those with lower levels of immunity. And the exact cause of Asperger's syndrome is not known. You can cause a syndrome, acquire a syndrome, you can suffer from a syndrome, diagnose a syndrome. And some synonyms for syndrome: ailment, disorder, malady, sickness, problem. Epidemic. Epidemic. If there is an epidemic of a particular disease, it affects a very large number of people, usually in a particular region or a country. So here's a picture of a flu epidemic from 1918 when millions of people died. This was an epidemic. In fact, it was more than that, which we'll look at that later. Epidemic. A severe flu epidemic is sweeping through Moscow. A killer epidemic of yellow fever is affecting Central Africa. A report warns that the AIDS epidemic is not yet at its peak. So you can have an epidemic of something. A flu epidemic. A deadly epidemic. An epidemic sweeps through a country, sweeps through a region. So epidemic is a widespread disease, a plague. And the last one, a pandemic. Actually, a pandemic is an epidemic that affects huge areas, vast areas, maybe the entire world. So the 1918 flu epidemic I mentioned just now was a pandemic because it was over the entire world. Trauma. Trauma. A trauma is a serious injury caused by an accident rather than an illness. I'm going to show you a horrible picture. Oh no! This person has a traumatic injury, a nail. Oh dear, let's move on. Some examples of trauma. Horse riding accidents often involve head trauma. An ambulance is vital for getting trauma patients to hospital quickly. Because of the car accident, she suffered severe neck and head trauma. So you can have a severe trauma, head trauma, a trauma patient, and a trauma surgeon. And some synonyms for trauma: injury, wound, blow, damage, shock. These are all types of trauma, words for trauma. So there are your 7 illness words: acute, chronic, addict, allergy, syndrome, epidemic, trauma.